Hello, hello, hello. A book review. I've been reading this book for a while. This is Helen Joyce's trans book, When Ideology Meets Reality. It's a suppressed text. You might have a hard time finding it in some bookshops. In America, I think she had a hard time getting it published over there. So I think it might be coming to you soon. But yeah, the whole trans debate is one that's I've been fascinated by. I didn't have a, I didn't have a dog in that race for a while. I I was made aware of people like Graham Linehan, writer of shows like Father Ted, who was put out as a crazy man. He's gone trans crazy, and I just kind of like shrugged. How you do, shrugged. There's a lot of things on Twitter, and you just shrug at it and go. But it only became in my realm of influence, in my sphere of influence, when my daughter went from uh, little school to big school, from year 6 to year 7. And it was the first week she came back from big school. She's going, God, because we have a very talkative relationship. She likes to talk. We like to talk about things. She said, "Oh, the kids are all going on about being bi and trans and pan and all these things." And I said, "Wow, that's odd." She went, "Yeah," and it was girls and boys who, well, mainly girls that she'd known from a previous school who up until that point had shown no interest in it, and then it was like a switch had been turned on. And again, the school talks about this kind of thing an awful lot. There's an awful lot of acceptance and things, and there's nothing wrong with being accepting of people, different people. And so I started kind of getting interested in the topic myself, and then that opens up a whole debate into that. Now, this book, I bought it because interested in the topic, and I want to find out where this all came from. And yeah, Ellen Joyce does a very interesting job. It's a very dense, wordy, not in a bad way, in a good way, book, and it explains a lot of the history of this and where it's going and where it's been. So she looks at the history of the whole thing, and again, I think it's a very fair and even-handed account of the whole trans issue. Again, but trans now is a very big umbrella term. In the old days, it just meant transsexual, but now it's conflated transvesticism, uh, autogynephilia, gender dysphoria, all of it under the same umbrella. And like I say, she's crystallised so many ideas and talks about so many different points of the subject. It's a really fascinating, deep read. Again, the problem with the whole trans issue is information is suppressed. They're a bit like a cult. They're a bit like, you can draw parallels with Scientologists. They will shut you down. They will call you names, and they will spread lies and awful rumours. And it's all detailed in this book. Studies and doctors and scientists have all been, victimised because they've come up with information or studies that have gone against the current ideology of being all accepting. And there are some issues with the trans debate. Again, the whole idea of self ID. It's crazy. The idea that in the morning I could be a woman and have access to female changing rooms and whatnot, and then in the afternoon I'll be a man again, just because I say so. The idea that biological sex is now, in these circles, rejected in favour of, you know, gender and self ID. It makes it, all ridiculous. Pushing towards a pansexual future where you have to accept the genitals of the person who says that they're a woman, even though they may have the genitals of a biological male. It's really interesting, fascinating, and it's the crazy side of things. Now, there will be people out here who point at the screen going transphobe. No, I'm not. I don't care. You can live as you please, but when your rights infringe on other people's rights, that's where there's the issue. And in this, and again in the book, it illustrates it really well. The whole trans movement undermines biological women's rights, their rights to private spaces, to be seen by female doctors, the whole area of sport, which has been a big thing recently. It all talks about that, in the book. And if you're a man who's grown up around women, or I've got two here, my wife and my daughter. Again, I ask them about these things. I talk to them, and that's where my opinion has been formed from. What are you comfortable with? What do you think this should be? And I'm accepting up to a point, but also as a man, I can see how coercive and how deliberately invasive these men in dresses, because they're not women, I will call them that when they have the operation and live as a woman. But until that point, to me, there'll always be men in dresses. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Because it's gone very, very crazy. So yeah, it's a fascinating book, and if you're interested in the topic, do read it. And also, there's a very big section about trans children. There's a big push for children to go trans. Again, this is something my daughter mentions, and she has friends who are interested in, getting binders, and which can do all sorts of physiological damage. And there is a culture of affirmation rather than taking a wait and see approach. Again, our child can decide what is right for them when we don't let kids get tattoos or drive a car or drink alcohol or have sex, but we're willing to let them do all sorts of terrible things to their bodies in the name of trans. As a parent, I gulp and go, wow, there are no such thing as trans kids, only bad parents. And there'll be people again throwing their shoes at the screen saying transphobe. I'm not. Once you're an adult, you can do what you darn well please, but keep out of women's changing rooms if you have a penis, and don't force your children down a road of deep psychological and physical harm, because we're going to see this. I mark my words, in 10 years we're going to see this happen. But yeah, it is a very, very interesting and eye-opening book. You will learn things, and your eyes will be opened. But it is suppressed because a lot of the media and a lot of people are against the truth getting out, against statistics getting out. And it's funny because in years to come, people look back, criminologists look back and go, wow, there was a massive spike in women committing sex crimes, from 2019 onwards. And that's because a lot of men do it, and now they identify as women, and that's what goes down on the crime sheet. Yeah. It's all there, man. It's all there. So yeah, it's a really interesting book. I imagine that this video will get suppressed because we're talking about a fascinating book. Again, there'll be many who I might get hate comments, but it says more about them than me. I'm a man of love and peace and understanding. We need to fight for women's rights, because they've only had many of these rights they've only had for 100 years, and it's not taken long before the patriarchy is adapted, slipped on that dress, and are now telling women to shut up again, like they used to do when they wore suits. Do you remember? So yeah, that's the book. Do get it. Helen Joyce, who is she works for The Economist, the Britain editor for The Economist. And again, it's a very even-handed book. It's a dense one. It's like over 300 pages, but boy, it's a real eye-opener, and it tells you about all the strategies that the trans rights advocates, the TRAs, use to silence people and to frighten people. And yeah, we should be engaged in honest debate, but you won't get a lot of that. But yeah, do give it a go. Something a bit unusual for the channel, but it's something that I'm interested in. I've got to thank my daughter for opening my eyes to it and make me realise that people like Graham Linehan hasn't gone crazy. He actually made a very good point about it. And if you are a parent, you do need to realise that there's an awful lot of weird stuff out there, and a lot of it is being propagated by schools. You know, in an attempt to accept and be inclusive to everything. There's one thing that they're not inclusive to, but in their attempt to be inclusive, we have a lot of this strange gender ideology, and it's also limiting our politics. This is why Labour and the Greens will not prosper. It's in this book. Read this book. It reveals how the Tories have pulled off a masterstroke when it comes to gender ideology, because they've figured it all out. But Labour and the Greens haven't. It's all in the book. It's all in the book. If you want to get rid of the Conservative government, read the book. But yeah, schools and that, there is one ism that they will never, ever want to bring on board, and that's ableism. And like I said, my daughter's always bringing it up. They talk about, this, that and the other, but she always brings up ableism and how the disabled are held back. No. Remember, it's all about this instead. And this is the biggest smokescreen ever. And it's about this 3 multi-millionaires out there that's pushing this ideology, and it's being reinforced by Silicon Valley. Because it's a funny world we live in, isn't it? It's a funny world where men in dresses get to tell women what to do and think. But there you go. So yeah, trans, when ideology meets reality, by Helen, Joyce. Don't let us end up like Canada. All right, and that's it. Thanks for watching. Oh, I'm going to get cancelled myself now. What do you reckon? Probably. There's only one more thing left to say. And it's ta.